Hello, namaste everyone. I've been requested to record a short introduction to the Purusha Suktam, and this is an introduction to a sequence of videos that have been prepared on the Purusha Suktam. So, there is a certain irony in requiring an introduction to the Purusha Suktam because, in some sense, it is akin to asking to be introduced to yourself, which of course would be a peculiar situation. I mean, if I were to come to you and say, well, this is you. But of course, this irony becomes clearer after the experiential understanding of the Purusha Suktam itself. But before that, probably some sort of introduction is needed. Um, the Purusha Suktam belongs to the Rigveda. And as some of you may know, the Rigveda is the foundational um, experiential knowledge base on which, um, and in conjunction with the other Veda, on which our Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism is based. So, when I say that the Purusha Suktam needs no introduction, because how do you introduce yourself to yourself? Um, what I mean by that is that the rishis or sages to whom these insights were revealed are actually a part of us. And we do have in our recorded history that these insights were known about 7,000 years ago, although strictly speaking, the insight is timeless. And so, for at least 7,000 years, we have known about ourselves. And yet, somehow, um, in spite of that, it's taken so long to know this. Ordinarily, in university courses, we have 14 weeks to learn something, and 7,000 years, 1,000 years is certainly a long time to be learning this, and yet here we are. So, the experiential understanding of this reveals to us that this revelatory insight was forgotten by each of us, because this is truly our story. It's each of our stories. And of course, it is very sad to not know oneself and to have forgotten one's true nature. And it's for this reason that the rishis transmitted orally the Purusha Suktam. So, literally, the Purusha Suktam, the word Suktam is a Sanskrit word, and its literal translation means that which is good to say. Suktam, that which is worth saying and that which is beneficial. And Purusha is a word that can be translated in very many different ways, but probably the most appropriate one is Purishayati iti Purusha, the one who sleeps in the city of nine gates being the body. So, this Purusha Suktam is our story. And for those of you who approach this with uh, an open heart, a feeling of openness, ready to receive wisdom, and you have faith in the fact that something that we know is 7,000 years old is probably of value, and that you may learn something from it, such people will benefit greatly from both this introduction and the subsequent exposition of the Purusha Suktam. And there are many brilliant translations and chanting of it. On the other hand, we must acknowledge that the mind has parts that are skeptical, and there are people who may not be open or inclined to actually acknowledging that there is great wisdom in this. And worse still, there are some who actively seek to denigrate and poo-poo and make fun of, ridicule, devalue the wisdom that is in the Veda and the Purusha Suktam. And quite unfortunately, this has been going on for many years, both by people who arrived onto the Bharatvarsh, the Indian subcontinent, and unfortunately having infected the inhabitants and denizens of that country itself. There are many who are born in the tradition but forswear their allegiance to it and are not able to see the wisdom. When the mind is resistant to wisdom, sees everything in a wrong way, and wants to make um, uh, see evil and see difference and in where it is not, it's very hard to help those kinds of people. And one also has to guard against that, both for oneself and within one's community. So I hope that this short introduction will inspire everyone to see the goodness and the wisdom in this Purusha Suktam, because indeed it is. And it is our story. And if you deny our story, well, then nobody can help you, right? It's a fool who denies himself. So, the one who sleeps in the city of night, it's Purusha Suktam. I gave you the literal translation. Now, although I said that the experiential learning, the experiential insight is the ultimate goal, well, uh, because we have forgotten it for 7,000 years, one has to take a more graded approach. So, the first approach is one can, in the traditional sense, one should learn to chant it, because it is experiential not only in the deepest spiritual sense that I've been talking about all along, but it is experiential also in a physical sense. So, ideally, one would learn Sanskrit or have already learned it, because chanting it in Sanskrit um, with the correct pronunciation, charanam, syllables, etc., and the characteristics of that chanting, obey strict rules, learning that itself is highly beneficial. So, that is, one may say, at the first surface level. Um, the body is trained by that, the tongue is trained, and many benefits result. I've also um, shared with you some thoughts on the benefits of Vedic chanting, which go far beyond any kind of music. And I think it's worth refreshing our understanding of the benefits of Vedic chanting. So the regulation of the breath also then tunes the body and the breath in very specific ways. And then, of course, but the man is not just a human being, is not just a body and breath, there's also mind. And so, naturally, the intelligent mind would like to know the meaning of what is being chanted. So, first learning to chant it with the correct pronunciation, with the correct emphasis, the pitch, regulation of the breath, which is a pranayama of its own, and then learning the meaning, understanding the meaning, soaking into it. Um, and then, of course, with a spiritual practice, sadhana, one can have the full experiential delight of the Purusha Suktam. And then, of course, when such a person chants it, uh, the meaning becomes more explicated, and it's very profound. It's a very profound experience, both to the person chanting and to the person who is listening. So, in summary, that is the Purusha Suktam. And as I mentioned, it is your story, and naturally, you should make effort to understand yourself and your story. It would be a very, and it's not just your story in a sense of any conscious being, it is the story of every conscious being. It is just that as human beings in this form, we have been particularly blessed to understand and experience this in an easy way. And it is a failure on our part to live up to our humanity if we cannot understand this and make effort to understand it. And As I mentioned, there are various parts to it, and there is quite a nice little book here, the Purusha Sukta and Exegesis by Swami Harshananda, which I was given at an early age. This is published by the Ramakrishna Mutt in Bangalore. And of course, learning the chanting, it's through an oral tradition and practicing it. It also finds use in many aspects of Vedic and Hindu religion, in the sense of both in yajnas, but also in pujas and various other samskaras, the naimitika karmas. We find the Purushas. It can also be chanted daily, which I do, and it's very beneficial in my opinion. And it has different layers as you go on and see the various verses which are explained in the series. You will see that approaching it with an open mind, approaching it with the sense that this is the highest wisdom, is very beneficial. Trying to mm, interpret it through one's limited understanding, ignorant understanding, ascribing notions of caste, which are an imported concept into the Hindu Vedic tradition, misunderstanding that and ascribing negative um, interpretations of that is not going to be beneficial. It's going to happen, but it's not going to help anybody. But it does happen. And to those who feel ashamed of their heritage or are troubled by this, all I can say is good luck. Wish you well. I hope you find the light at some point. And to those of you who are open to it, well, let us delight in it. Let's rejoice in it. So, with that, enjoy the Purusha Suktam. It's your story. It's the story of all creation. It's the story of every conscious being. And we should chant it vigorously, enjoy it, experience it. And that will lead us to our true nature, which is blissful. Namaste.